Thank you everyone for joining the 2021 Encuentro Digital Amafore, and welcome to this exciting event. I'm Heinz Volkwarts, head of America's International State Street Global Advisor, the Spiders ETFs. The State Street Corporation and its business Global Advisors, Global Markets at the State Street Bank are proud indeed to be a sponsor of this first panel. The panel name is The World in the Future. It's such a fascinating topic for us to hear, given the commitment of our company that has taken and participated in building financial solutions and products to access this new world. In few seconds, we will be hearing from Dr. Peter Diamandis, who is an international pioneer in the field of innovation, incentive competitions, and commercial space. In the field of innovation, for example, Diamandis is a chairman and CEO of the X Prize Foundation, best known for its 10 million Ansari X Prize for private spaceflight. Today, the X Prize leads the world in designing and operating large-scale global competitions to solve market failures. Diamandis is also the co-founder and executive chairman of Singularity University, a graduate-level Silicon Valley institution that studies exponentially growing technologies, their ability to transform industries and solve humanity's grand challenges. Peter's mission is open to a space frontier for humanity. His personal motto is, best way to predict the future is to create it yourself. Interviewing Dr. Diamandis is Josemaría Bolio. With over 20 years of experience in the financial industry, Josemaría was appointed CEO of Principal Afore in August 2020. Previously, he held strategic positions in companies such as CI Banco, Banco Compartamos, and ICSE. Josemaría holds a BA in Industrial Engineer from Universidad Panamericana, an executive MBA for IPADE Business School, and the programs of executive education at Harvard Business School. All of those programs focus on leadership, disruptive innovation, and microfinance. He's a passionate runner with a 2-hour and 53-second marathon record and a husband and a father of 3 amazing kids. With that, I will turn it to Peter, and thank you again for joining this event.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and excited to be talking to you about the subject of innovating the future. I'll begin by saying I believe we're living during the most exciting and extraordinary times ever in human history. And the fact is that we have a challenge understanding how fast the world is changing. There's no scientist, no engineer, no financial executive, no pension fund manager who truly is able to really grasp the speed of change. The challenge is our brains, the 100 billion neurons that make everything we think and know, evolved for a very different world. Our brains evolved for a world 100,000, a million years ago, back when the world was local and linear. Nothing affected you that was not within a day's walk, and things did not change decade to decade, century to century. They didn't even change millennium to millennium. But today, we're living in a very different world. We're living in a world that is global and exponential. Things are not changing decade to decade. They're not even changing year to year. They're changing month to month right now. And something happens on the other side of the planet in China or India, it's affecting you seconds later, microseconds later. So when I think about the world we're living, faster, cheaper computers are what's driving much of this. And in the financial world, we know this, and we've come to really understand and expect the power of computation. But on top of this power of faster and more powerful computers in the cloud, on the edge, are growing a whole set of other exponential technologies: sensors, networks, AI, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, augmented, virtual reality, blockchain. And it used to be that you could be an expert in any one or two of these, and that was enough. But what's going on today is really, it's the convergence of 2, 3, or 4 of these technologies that is reinventing every industry. reinventing every business model. And we're seeing this a lot in the finance world with the combination of blockchain and AI and high-speed networks, giving us DeFi and a whole range of things that are going to impact where we get our financial services. So as I think about this, let me begin by defining what is exponential growth in the first place. What does exponential growth mean? What does it feel like? So we're all, as I said earlier, linear thinkers. We're very good at saying in 5 steps, I'll be 5 meters away. In 30 steps, I'm going to be 30 meters away, right? But when I say, can you think exponentially? Where an exponential is a simple doubling, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. In 30 doublings, you're not 30 meters away. In 30 doublings, you're a billion meters away. Put differently, you have gone 26 times around the planet. And it's the difference between that linear thinking and that exponential growth that is disrupting every industry this decade. So this red line is all of us. It's our investors, our fellow board members, it's our children, it's our politicians. None of us have had a hardware or a software upgrade in 2 million years. It's pretty much, the brain has been a linear capability. But this yellow line is what we're here to talk about. This yellow line is computation and quantum computers and AI and robotics and all of those technologies doubling in power every 18 to 24 months. And the difference between us linear thinking humans and the technology that we're creating and inventing is either disruptive stress or it's disruptive opportunity, depending on your point of view. So I've had the chance to write a few New York Times bestsellers. My second one was called Bold, and I opened up with the story of Kodak. And we might all remember Kodak as, when we want to go on vacation, we will buy that, 36 exposure color Ektachrome film, and we'd pay for the entire roll to be developed before we knew if any of the images came out. And back in 1996, Kodak is at the top of its game, 140,000 employees, $28 billion market cap. What most people don't realize is that 20 years earlier, in 1976, a gentleman by the name of Steven Sasson had come up with a digital camera in Kodak's labs. And when he showed this digital camera that took 0.01 megapixel images to his board, they said, "You're kidding. This is a joke. This is a toy for kids. We are Kodak. We make beautiful, high-resolution images." And then they made the fatal mistake. They said, "Besides, we are in the paper and chemicals business." And when they didn't jump onto this new technology that was developing the preservation of people's memories, which is the reason George Eastman started Kodak 100 years ago, when they failed to jump on new technology, it drove them into bankruptcy, even though they had the first mover advantage, the first patents. And in the same year that Kodak went bankrupt, another company also in the business of preserving people's memories, a company called Instagram, gets acquired by Facebook for $1 billion. But they only had 13 employees and people laughed at them. How could you pay $1 billion for a company with 13 employees? But what they didn't realize was this was truly an exponential company. And today, Facebook is not $1 billion. It's over $100 billion on, on Facebook, now Meta's balance sheet. And so this is what it looks like when a linear technology, film photography, falls off that cliff. You see that yellow line down at the bottom. And what digital photography, this exponential technology, looks as it's growing exponentially. And we're going to see this repeated over and over again across a multitude of different industries. So one of the questions I ask every group of CEOs, executives who I'm speaking to is, what business are you truly in? Kodak was not in the paper and chemicals business. They were in the business of preserving people's memories. So what business are you truly in? If we asked Amazon what business they're in, I've known Jeff Bezos for almost 40 years. It would be a very simple, 3 bullets. They're in the business of delivering anything that's cheaper, faster, and with more variety. So as we think about the pension fund business, what is the ultimate business? Not how have you been doing business up till today? What is the mission and purpose of helping, provide the greatest returns in the safest fashion? And how do you do that? Perhaps it's going to be different in the next 10, 20, 30 years. So one of the things that's true, which we have to address up front, is that we're going from I've got an idea to I run a billion-dollar company faster than ever before. That the majority of wealth that's being created is in the phase of the startup period, going from an idea to a creation. And, when I think about this, here's some examples. My friend Chad Hurley starts YouTube on his credit cards and sells it to Google for $1.65 billion 18 months later, right? We heard about Instagram going from nothing to $100 billion valuation. There's no way to explain Uber and Lyft and Airbnb to the traditional companies out there. Massive growth. Now, look at this eye chart. On the far left, what we see are billion-dollar startups. Every logo here is a unicorn, a billion-dollar startup. On the far right, what we see is 2017 is a blur of all of these. If I went to 2021 and 22, you wouldn't be able to see anything. And what we're seeing is that the rate at which wealth is being created is accelerating. And it's coming from the startup phase to a large degree. So the way that I stay on top of this is I have built a venture platform, and I invest through my venture platform into these companies that are looking to disrupt and differentiate the world. So one of the questions in the pension business is, do you need to move more of your capital into the venture fund side of the equation? And is there enough bets to be able to reduce the risk? Because the speed of these billion-dollar startups is going to accelerate and accelerate and accelerate at a point where you can't ignore this phase of the marketplace. All right, what I'd like to do is talk about the meta trends. What's going to happen over the next 10 years, and what does it mean for the next 30 years plus? So the first meta trend is that we're seeing a massive amount of capital abundance, right? In 2020, in the midst of a pandemic, we saw more money going into the venture business than any time ever in human history. In fact, we have set all-time venture capital investment highs in 2016, and then we beat that in 2017 and 2018 and 2019 and 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2021, right? Here's another way of looking at it. $3.6 trillion in capital during a pandemic going into companies. And so what this means is that more capital is flowing in and more bigger bets are being made. More disruption is coming because there are more startups taking bigger moonshots with more capital to transform every market. So we're going to see a complete transformation of healthcare, of energy, of education, of insurance, of finance in not 50 years or 30 years. I think it's going to be the next decade, perhaps at the most the next 20 years. So let's talk about energy and materials. What we're going to be seeing over the next 10 to 30 years is a transformation from what was scarce to abundant. And this is happening very much in the energy and materials space. So it used to be that, we would go and kill whales on the ocean to get whale oil to light our nights, to be able to read at night. Then we tore down mountains to get access to coal. And then we drilled kilometers under the ocean floor for oil and drilled into the ground for natural gas. And we see a price of 5 to 6 cents per kilowatt hour. But we're living in a world today that the earth is covered in 8,000 times more energy from the sun than we consume as a species. we are heading towards a massive abundance of energy from the sun. And so here we see some of the data that photovoltaics are beating wind and natural gas consistently over and over again. And one of the takeaways for me that's fascinating, especially for Mexico and parts of South and Central America, is that the poorest countries in the world are the sunniest countries in the world. So what happens when the petrodollar starts to massively diminish and we're starting to see countries becoming net energy exporters because they've got the best weather and the best sun? At the same time, of course, we're going to need storage, but we're seeing consistently a 20% performance gain in lithium ion, but billions of dollars flowing into battery technologies, being driven by the notion that governments are requiring companies to stop producing internal combustion engine cars and going to full electric cars. So here's another kind of energy. This is a friend of mine, Bill Gross. He started a company called Heliogen. And what he found was if you can heat water to 1,000 degrees centigrade, the water breaks down to hydrogen and oxygen. And so he built a system where you use these mirrors with a special material controlled by machine learning algorithms to point the sunlight at a very particular point. And you can actually combine sunlight and water to create hydrogen as a storable fuel source, right? Again, we will see this happening throughout Mexico and parts of South and Central America. But besides this, for the last year, if you've been reading this, we're seeing a massive resurgence in fusion. So nothing will be more abundant and lower cost than fusion. And we're seeing more and more venture capital funds investing in fusion companies. And so this is out of MIT. This is another one, Helion, that just raised $500 million. And this is looking to go into commercial service before the end of this decade. Again, between solar and wind and fusion, we're going to see a massive transformation. Here's a show of how abundance in materials, what would you think of as more scarce than a perfect diamond, a 5, 6, 10 carat diamond? Well, it turns out that the technology to create beautiful and pure synthetic diamonds, they're actual diamonds, but they're grown in a lab. And so you can make a 5, 10, 20 carat diamond that if you want imperfections or color, you can add it. But this year, Pandora, the world's largest jeweler, actually made a decision. They're going to stop selling diamonds that are naturally mined because of the environmental and human rights issues and only sell lab-grown diamonds, right? The cost of this is dollars per carat, massive profit margins, right? Going from scarcity to abundance. All right, let's talk about another field that I love, which I'm focused, most of my investments are in, my venture fund, is the notion of increasing health span and longevity, making 100 years old than you 60. And in the pension world, this is something you have to be aware of and wake up to. What happens when, 10, 20, 30 years from now, the average lifespan is above 100, where people are living an extra 20 or 30 healthy years? How do you deal with that? What kind of returns do you need to make sure that individuals' pensions are continuing for added decades? So what we're seeing is massive acceleration, right? We went from a RNA sequence to a vaccine being manufactured and produced and approved in under a year. The speed of this innovation is shocking. This is one of my companies that just went public called Vaccinity. And we're using vaccines to be able to treat chronic disease. So instead of having Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or stroke or heart disease, you get a vaccine early in your life and you vaccinate yourself against getting these diseases. It's really about democratizing and demonetizing health. And in this case, we're disrupting a $160 billion business. And it's really getting involved in fundamental breaking, innovative technology like this, that pension funds need to be looking at investing in the future, where the returns are going to be massively disproportionate to traditional debt and other tools. We saw CRISPR technology in 2020 get the Nobel Prize, $1.5 billion in revenue. We're going to see this technology doubling in revenue probably every 6 to 12 months. Why? Because it's miraculous. So here is a company, Editas, which is another public company that has, from a single injection in the back of the eye, able to cure a congenital form of blindness. It's biblical in that regard. Here's another CRISPR technology that is able to cure, not to treat, but to cure beta thalassemia and sickle cell anemia, right? So we're heading towards, in the next 30 years, I think without much question, we're going to cure every genetic disease. Genetic diseases are going to go away. If you have a genetic disease, you're going to partner with other people to get the right CRISPR technology or the right gene therapy technology. We're going to do away with this issue which has plagued humanity forever. Here's another example. This is a CRISPR treatment. It's in monkeys right now. It'll go into humans, where a single injection is able to reduce your cholesterol levels by 60%. This was the biggest news of 2020 in the bio and longevity world. Dr. David Sinclair published an article on the cover of Nature, the most beloved, highest reputation biomedical magazine, in which he demonstrated that he was able to turn back time. He's able to reverse the biological age of the eyes of a mouse, be able to return it to an earlier state where the eyes were able to see perfectly, the retina was functioning, the optic nerve was functioning. And so we're going to start to see these treatments that are able to not only slow aging and stop aging, but reverse aging. Every year I take my abundance community on a longevity platinum trip. We go and visit the top scientists and researchers and companies. I want to show you a short video from two of the top scientists, Dr. George Church from Harvard Medical School and Dr. David Sinclair, also from Harvard Medical School, and their thought about reversing aging. Let's take a listen to this.
It is quite possible that some of the people alive today will see no upper limit.
Imagine having a treatment, perhaps a viral delivery of these 3 genes when you're 45, everything's good, you reach 50, biologically you can measure that, and then you get a course of doxycycline. 3 weeks later, many, if not all, parts of your body are rejuvenated, and then you reset the clock.
So what does that mean to the pension business? If you're able to rejuvenate, and by the time you're 70, you feel like you're 50, and the last thing you want to do is retire because you feel great, you've got the best business position and contacts in the world, and then we're making 100 years old and you're 60, and 120 years old and you're 60. So on the horizon, we're going to start to see these things beginning this decade, and well within the next 30 years, we're going to see a new set of expectations of what does retirement mean and how old can I expect to live. So interesting, this was a study done at Harvard and Oxford and London School of Business that said slowing aging by only 1 year is worth $38 trillion to the global economy. All right, let's talk about increasing computation and AI. All right, there's nothing more important than artificial intelligence. And I'm investing my capital through Bold into longevity and AI. That's my focus, for example. So that's where I focus my time. So Moore's Law, Gordon Moore, the creator of Intel, the co-founder of Intel, said, the number of transistors per dollar on a piece of silicon is roughly going to double every 18 to 24 months. And it has done so for 20 years, and people think it's going to slow down. Well, it has not slowed down. It's continuing unabated. And here's the data from 2020. And here's the world's largest computer chip, 2.6 trillion transistors. It's phenomenal. This past year, one of the biggest stories of the year was a program, a generative pre-trained transformer called GPT-3 as a neural net, which is able to go from an idea that you give it. You say, please write a blog, or please write a song, or please write a story on the following topic, and you give it the first line or two, and then the system is able to anticipate and predict what should go next. And so it's very human-like in what it generates. And GPT-3 is now being used to be able to code software. Microsoft made $1 billion investment in OpenAI, the company that manufactured GPT-3, so that you could go from speech to software. If you're a lawyer but don't know how to code a computer, you can describe what you want the computer to do, and GPT-3 will write the computer code, even if you don't know how to code. And it's not slowing down. GPT-4 is being developed right now. It's 500 times the size of GPT-3, which means it's going to be more accurate, more human-like. We're seeing AI also being applied heavily to the health business, right? In Silico, one of our investments in Bold is, discovering new drugs faster than any normal process could. We're seeing AI outperforming radiologists in detecting different kinds of cancer, in this case, prostate cancer. AI can detect brain aneurysms, and AI can detect early Alzheimer's. So it's about, how do you use AI to be able to do things that it can do better than doctors. I think in the next 5 years, we're going to start to see that a diagnosis made by a human without AI in the loop will be malpractice. Again, just more examples of AI. So this is a quote from Sundar, the CEO of Alphabet, and he says, artificial intelligence could have more profound implications for humanity than electricity or fire. And I agree with that. I think it's going to be extraordinary. And here's the way I think about it. And this is a wake-up call to a lot of companies. There are going to be two kinds of companies at the end of this decade. Not 30 years from now, not 20 years from now, by 2030, two kinds of companies. Those that are fully utilizing AI to their maximum extent possible, and those that are bankrupt, out of business. I think AI is going to be as fundamental this decade as the telephone or electricity or using the web. So the question is, how do we compete? How do we, how do humans stay in the game here? Well, first of all, in the near term, it's going to be about AI and human collaboration. It's the AI working with the expert. It's an AI augmenting a financial investor, or an AI augmenting a physician. In the longer term, and this is, I was asked to speak about the next 30 years, so this is well within that time frame. I think this is probably in the next 12 to 15 years, not 30 years. What we're going to be doing is connecting your brain to the AI. So what does that mean? When my cell phone needs to do something complicated, it doesn't do the computation on the phone. I talk to it, I ask it to analyze an image, and the data goes from my phone to the edge of the cloud. It goes to the 5G network, and the computation is done there, and the answer comes back to me. Imagine in the future, if you have a complex thought you want to understand, or you want to Google something, you think about it, and from the surface of your brain goes a message wirelessly to the cloud, and the answer is gotten and brought back to you. Well, there are dozens of companies working on this, and probably every military organization. You may have heard of Neuralink. It's funded by Elon Musk. I've been tracking this very closely. I want to show you a short video of this monkey that had the Neuralink chips placed on the surface of its brain. And let's take a listen.
He's a 9-year-old macaque who had a Neuralink placed in each side of his brain about 6 weeks ago. He's learned to interact with a computer for a tasty banana smoothie delivered through a straw. As he's playing this game, we're wirelessly streaming, in real time, the firing rates from thousands of neurons to a computer. After only a few minutes of calibration, we can use the output from the decoder to move the cursor instead of the joystick. Paige still moves the joystick out of habit, but as you can see, it's unplugged. To control his paddle, on the right side of the screen, Paige simply thinks about moving his hand up or down. We've removed the joystick altogether. Now that he's up to speed, let's increase the difficulty and see how well Paige can play with the Neuralink.
So this technology is not theoretical. This technology is here. It'll be in humans within the next year and a half, 2 years at the utmost, for people who had a cervical fracture and can't control their arms and their legs. But very quickly, it'll be you think and you Google, or if you want to control a robot someplace, or if you need help understanding something. So what does this mean? What are the implications? Now, one of my go-to experts, one of my mentors is a gentleman by the name of Ray Kurzweil, who's my co-founder of Singularity University. He's got the best prediction record. His prediction of when we're going to have high bandwidth brain-computer interfaces is by the early 2030s, just a dozen years from now. All right, let's continue. Let's talk about meta trends of increasing sensors, communications, and data. So, of course, what's going on right now is Starlink. This is a division of SpaceX, is launching a 12,000 satellite constellation and maybe as many as 40,000 satellites. And then there are other companies like Blue Origin plus Verizon launching their own. And these satellites are delivering 100 megabits today. They'll be delivering gigabit connection speeds in the next few years. So in the next 10 years, at maximum, we're going to be covering the entire planet in gigabit connection speeds. Every square meter on the planet will be bathed in two-way, high-speed connectivity. And it's not just satellite networks, of course, it's 5G, which all of us have and use. Just 2 years ago, it was 13 million users. 2 years or 3 years from now, it'll be 2.8 billion users. But 5G is 100 times faster than 4G. We went from tens of megabits to a gigabit connection speed, and we're about to go to 6G at 100 times faster. And 6G is fast enough to download 142 hours of Netflix in a single second, right? You'll never have to get out of bed again. So what does this mean? We're not just connecting every person on the planet, we're also beginning to connect everything on the planet. So this is the Internet of Things, the IoT, the Internet of Everything. Today, there are some 35 billion connected devices. We'll be up to 75 billion in the next 3 or 4 years, right? It's $1 trillion marketplace. All right, let's talk about one of the things that this enables. The IoT and global high-speed connectivity is also enabling the transportation revolution, where everything is moving faster everywhere all the time. Now, this is beginning with autonomous vehicles, and my greatest hope for Los Angeles and Mexico City is to reduce traffic by having autonomous ride sharing occurring. But we're seeing a 63% per year increase, right? It's a $54 billion market by 2026. Waymo is doing an amazing job moving this forward. Brand new sensors and higher level AI is making this more feasible and more powerful and safer every single year. Tesla has perhaps the most data. I've owned 2 of these vehicles. I'm waiting for my self-driving download to come to me. This year at Abundance 360, I brought Aisha Evans, the CEO of Zoox. Amazon spent $1 billion to buy Zoox. And they've developed this 4-person taxi service that will become operational in cities around the US and I'm sure around the world. But it's not just driving people around. FedEx is investing heavily in these autonomous self-driving package delivery services. And it's not just wheeled vehicles. We're also seeing flying delivery drones, right? This is Amazon Prime. They just got approval from the FAA for Part 135 to deliver packages. You know, we're talking about a few kilograms here, but it's not just Amazon. This is Alphabet. They delivered 100,000 packages, right? So instead of having to get in your car to go someplace, you can have your McDonald's burger or your Starbucks coffee delivered to your home. But more importantly, this is going to be about the delivery of medicines and just-in-time delivery of things that are critical for life. Now, besides flying drones, another big market that I'm tracking and investing in is flying cars. The accurate term is electric vertical takeoff or landing vehicles. We saw billions of dollars flowing in. Morgan Stanley predicts this market to be 1.5 trillion by 2040. And so this is what it looks like. This is a company out of Europe called Lilium, just went public for $3 billion this year. Here's Joby, which went public for $6.6 billion. One of my favorite companies, a company called Beta. I have the CEO of Beta coming to Abundance 360 this February as well to talk about their technology. And what we're seeing here are companies that are going to redefine where you live and where you work. So imagine not having to spend an hour in traffic, instead being able to take up vertically, spend 6 minutes to fly to where you want to go and land. This is called aerial ride sharing. And it's not a matter of if. The technology is here and it's going to be rolled out. And one of the biggest changes that's going to happen is going to be in the price of real estate. Because all of a sudden, real estate that is beautiful and available, but it takes you an hour to drive there. But if you're in a eVTOL vehicle and it's 6 minutes, all of a sudden the price of that real estate goes up, and the price of the expensive real estate goes down, and it's going to rebalance because we're redefining the distance between where you live and where you work, which we saw during the pandemic with Zoom. A lot of changes coming in that part of the business. All right, let's talk about the metaverse as a meta trend. And this is really the combination of virtual and augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. It's about living in the metaverse as we're coming forward. During the pandemic, we saw $2 billion invested in AR and VR. I expect that number will be massively increased in 2021. Because there are huge amounts of investments going into redefining education and training for companies, education for students in the virtual world. The marketplace, I think these numbers are low, are going from 3 billion to 60 billion. I think we're going to see a massive increase, because what we're going to see is the metaverse, we'll talk about that in a moment, redefining the economy, where when I'm in the metaverse, I am doing my buying, my entertainment, my education in the metaverse, my healthcare in the metaverse. This is an example. This is one of the companies I'm on the board of, an investor in Vadim. Vadim stands for Virtual Atoms, and they did a program with State Farm insurance company. And what they did is they dropped, 1 million virtual footballs. And with your iPhone, you could go and find those virtual footballs as an NFT, a non-fungible token, and collect them, and then turn them in for additional valuable items. And so this was a way where State Farm could interact and develop a relationship. So this becomes a marketing mechanism for a lot of companies. I want to show you a short video. This is from Mark Zuckerberg's very recent, earlier this month, announcement of changing the name of Facebook to Meta and what it means. Let's watch this video for 40 seconds and talk about it.
Boy.
Oh, hey, Mark. Hey, what's going on?
There's an artist going around Soho hiding AR pieces for people to find.
This is stunning. Indeed, that.
All my sneakers, I never had a
Yo.
You're here!
Maybe you'll go head-to-head with players from around the world. I've got an idea.
Hey, where you going?
Gotta pump it to jump it. You'll be able to work out in new worlds, even against an AI. Maybe play pickup with people on the other side of the world.
Ancient Rome. Imagine standing on the streets, hearing the sounds, visiting the markets, to get a sense of the rhythm of life over 2,000 years ago.
So if you've heard about the metaverse, that's just a small piece of it. And, you know, I'm spending more and more time in the virtual world, but who's really spending time are your kids or their kids, right? I have two 10-year-old boys on Roblox, but, you know, Zoom is a very crude version of what we're going to be seeing as the resolution of our headsets goes up and as everything becomes AI enabled. I'm going to close with the conversation around small teams driving huge impacts in the idea of a moonshot mindset. So one of the things I'm very proud of is, you know, the best way to predict the future is create it yourself. And I wanted to create a future of private spaceflight. So back in 1996, under the Arch in St. Louis, I offered up a $10 million prize for the first team to build a spaceship that could carry 3 adults up into space, land safely, and do it again within 2 weeks. Well, that $10 million prize drove 100 teams, 26 teams who spent $100 million going after it. And this was the winning vehicle, Spaceship One, now hanging in the Smithsonian next to the Spirit of St. Louis that inspired it in the first place. And the winning technology was purchased by Richard Branson to create Virgin Galactic, which is, you know, a $10 billion plus company that came out of this. And when we launched the initial prize, it was thought to be crazy. It's something only for governments to do. And of course, today, private spaceflight is the inside thing, right? And I've known Bezos for 38 years and Elon for 21 years and obviously Branson for a couple of decades. And the X Prize sparked that private spaceflight revolution. Since then, we've launched $350 million worth of X Prizes, right? We have another $200 million worth of prizes. And this is where the rubber is hitting the road. The rate of innovation from small teams going after the world's biggest problems is where the greatest wealth creation is coming from. And it's now possible for small teams to do things that only governments or the largest corporations could do before. So, you know, here's an example of an X Prize of massive value. So this is a $15 million X Prize funded out of Abu Dhabi and by Tony Robbins. And it's to go from stem cells to fish and poultry. It's cellular agriculture, right? Reinventing how we produce our food. So it's cheaper, it's provided locally, it's healthier for you, and tastes better. That's the goal of this kind of technology. We also launched a $100 million gigaton carbon removal. I was able to reach out to Elon, who I've known, and said, let's do an X Prize on removing carbon from the atmosphere at a gigaton level. You know, he's amazing. He said, you know, let's do it almost instantly. And we launched this prize. And we have more teams competing for this prize than any other X Prize we've ever done before. And there's a reason. This is a massive marketplace, right? Carbon, and this is from Bill Gates. This is about a week ago, last month. Carbon capture technologies will create the next Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, and the next 8 to 10 Teslas. And this is from John Doerr, one of the top venture capitalists, that climate change brings economic opportunities that are bigger than the internet boom. So the question is this on your investment horizon? And then I'm working on this X Prize right now, a $100 million age reversal X Prize. The goal is to develop the therapeutics that can reverse the human age by 25% or 20 years with a single treatment. And I've raised at this point probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of that money. Anybody who wants to join us in this Age Reversal X Prize, please reach out. At the end of the day, this is about reinventing how we envision and create our future. A few thoughts to end on. I believe we're living during the most extraordinary time ever in human history. And a negative mind will never give you a positive life. And then finally, and I believe this is the thesis by which I invest my capital, and hopefully you do as well, that the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. Want to become a billionaire, help a billion people. So if you'd like a copy of this keynote, if you just send an email to keynote@diamandis.com, my server will send you back a copy of this PDF, and you can find out more about A360 or X Prize. Anyway, a pleasure to spend this time with this presentation. And now the fun part. Josemaría, I look forward to your questions, my friend.
Sure, Peter. First of all, thank you very much for the keynote. I took lots of notes. It's really everything very, very interesting. First of all, I didn't hear you speak about Future Loop. And I think it's very important to connect what's happening in the world with all the negative news we are invaded with. And I think there's no way of connecting all the dots if you don't speak a little bit of the creation of Future Loop, please.
Thank you for the opportunity, Josemaría. So here's the challenge. We're all, it's no surprise people have a negative view of the future because we are bombarded by negative news from the media all the time. If you think about what is the business model for the newspaper, the TVs, the radios, their business model is to deliver your eyeballs to their advertisers. And it turns out for evolutionary reasons, we pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. And so if you open up the newspaper and count the number of negative stories to positive stories, it's 10 to 1 at least, if not more. And the question is that all that's going on in the world? Is it all just negative news all the time? And the answer is no, but you don't pay attention to the good news as much as the negative news. So a couple of years ago, I realized that there's a lot of breakthroughs going on in the world that I never hear about. And that what I care about is training my brain by seeing all of the breakthroughs, all of the convergence of AI, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, AR, VR, blockchain, as they're impacting industries, impacting health, education, transportation, insurance, finance, whatever it is. So I ended up building a machine learning, actually a neural net AI model called Future Loop. And Future Loop scans the world's news, looking for news that has a positive sentiment. I don't care about murders or politicians. It's a positive sentiment. And it's looking at stories in which 2 or 3 or 4 exponential technologies are converging and impacting an industry. And it generates a newsletter every day of the top 15 breakthroughs that I need to know about. It's free. You go to futureloop.com, futureloop.com, and you can sign up. And the mission here is to help people see the amazing world we're living in. So I look at my Future Loop updates every day, and it keeps me in a positive sense, like that's amazing, that's happening, that's great. So, I've stopped watching the regular news and I read my Future Loop feed. So hopefully it's meaningful for everybody listening as well. Thank you, Josemaría, for that.
I'm sure it will. I see you every day as the virtual Peter feeds me those 15 positive news. Yes. I'm going to transfer it to the massive transformative purpose. With all the meta trends that you talked about today, I think not only pension systems, but all the individuals and all the audiences that are listening this morning to you should reconsider or rethink their massive transformative purpose. So talking about Abundance 360 and that main concept, could you share a little bit what's the MTP and how everybody should rethink it?
Yeah, listen, thank you for asking these questions, because they're the heart and soul of what I believe is so important. A massive transformative purpose, an MTP, is it's what is the purpose of your life or the purpose of your company, the purpose of your institution. A lot of times, so listen, doing anything big and bold in the world is hard. And unless it's fueled by emotional energy, unless it's fueled by I want to create this amazing future, or this situation that exists, we have to stop it. It could be fueled by positive emotional energy or a negative emotion of wanting to solve a problem. But to do anything significant may take years, may take decades, and you need that emotional fuel. So what I do at Abundance 360 every year with the CEOs in the room is I help walk them through a process of finding their MTP for themselves. It could be for their family, it could be for their family office, it could be for their company or for their industry. At whatever level you want to look at it. But it's, my MTP is to inspire and guide entrepreneurs to create a hopeful, compelling, and abundant future for humanity. So it's like, what do I want to do? I want to be able to inspire and guide. Who do I want to be a hero to? I want to be a hero to entrepreneurs. That's the group I work with the most, right? And what do I want? I'm focused on creating a hopeful, compelling, and abundant future. And it's not about shareholder return or return on investment. Those are fine, but all those things come when you have a bigger purpose, a bigger mission. And in the world today, when you're trying to attract talent and compete against other companies, talent wants to go to a place that has a purpose, has an MTP, and they want to feel good about where they put their time and their energy. And if I have a choice between putting my capital with somebody who's got an amazing MTP or someone who's providing similar returns but doesn't, I want to support the company with a great MTP. So really important there.
Thank you. You were talking about human longevity, on increasing 20, 30 years. There are currently, especially in development countries, people who are counting, especially with the pension the government is going to provide them. They don't have financial security. So I want to connect a little bit to talk to them about their purpose, what they can do to ensure a better future, not only to count on what the government or the company they work for, they're going to do for them, but to give them a reason to what do they have to change today? Because some of them see energy or the automatic cars like too far. What's beneath them?
Yeah. So I don't know how to put this more bluntly. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. We're beginning to understand the fundamentals of human aging. So there are species on this planet like bowhead whales and Greenland sharks that are living 200 years, 500 years. And we are in the smartest scientists I know. It used to be crazy to talk about age reversal even 5 years ago. Today, it's the hottest subject. There are tens of billions of dollars being invested in this. There's a multi-billion-dollar fund. I can't say how big it is, but it's huge. Out of the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, there are more billion-dollar startups. My venture fund, Bold Capital, went from all exponential technologies to 3/4 being invested into biotech, health tech, and longevity, and 1/4 into the other exponentials, because it's the biggest business on the planet. You still can't take it with you. And what's it worth to people to have an extra 20 or 30 healthy years? And by the way, technology doesn't slow down. So if you buy yourself an extra 10 or 20 or 30 healthy years, during that 10, 20, 30 healthy years, technology is moving 100 times further and buying you additional years. So I do think today's pension funds, today's wealth managers, today's insurance companies, need to realize that there is a disruptive change coming, and you have to think about the implications. Even if there's just a 0.1% chance that it's true, the implications for the people you serve is massive. You need to change how you think about your returns. They're going to have to be disproportionate returns to serve those individuals whose pensions you're entrusted with.
I know that you invested in a company which is investigating how to bring back to life extinct species.
Yes.
So the question here is, if you could bring back to life any leader from any past age, in order to sit and have a cup of coffee and discuss about your MTP, who would it be, and what would you discuss with that person?
Wow. Oh my God. So yeah, my company, my venture fund, Bold, invested in a company called Colossal, which is using CRISPR to bring back extinct species like the woolly mammoth, right? I mean, most of the people I would want to bring back are some of the greatest scientists of our time, from Einstein to Isaac Newton and such, to, or the people, at least for me, who founded the early days of America. When you're thinking about creating a brand new nation, like, how are you thinking on that scale to think about, creating a nation, and what was the vision for, the founding fathers in America? I'm very excited about that, because one of my long-term visions is creating nations on the moon or in space. And what would that look like? So I'm enamored by the scope of that vision. I've had a chance to spend time with some of the greatest entrepreneurs on the planet, learn from them, invest with them. And so anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. I would like to know, what's the role Kristen, your wife, and your kids play on your MTP, on your purpose? It's very interesting for me to know her role over the years you have as a couple.
I think my family is more a balance for me than anything else, because I live in the future. I am consuming constantly throughout the day, reading about every tech on a consistent basis. I have an entire team of entrepreneurs feeding me data on this breakthrough and integrating it, and how do I reteach this information. So my family is my grounding in that regard. But I'm 60 now. I had my two boys when I was 50. They're 10 years old, and so that's an incredible experience. They keep me very young. As soon as we get off of this, I'm going to be taking one of my boys to his baseball practice, and that's fun. I mean, I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if I didn't have this other part of my life. But I see the world through my boys' eyes, and that's extraordinary. The conversations we have and the things that they think about, that I never thought about that stuff. They're learning it all on YouTube outside of the classroom. YouTube is their educational platform, because they can investigate any interest they have and click to the next level and to the next level and to the next level.
I know that you say when you are teaching your kids, there are three main concepts: help them find their passion,
yes,
foster their curiosity, and teach them the importance of persistence. I think those three define more or less who Peter Diamandis is. And I think that could be the closing statement from you to all the Mexican audience, especially young people, thinking about their purpose, thinking about what they're going to do, starting their work lives, going out of college, going out of high school. So with those three concepts, I would like you to close to this.
So thank you. Let me address that to the young entrepreneurs and the young scientists and the young thinkers who are with us today, or to those of you who are parents to your kids. we are living during the most extraordinary time ever. You as entrepreneurs, as the beginning of your career, have access to almost anything and everything. There's more capital available than any time ever in human history. And next year will be even more capital available. You have access to all the world's information at the click of a button. You have equal access to the world's information as the founders of Google. No difference, identical. You have access to more computational power. You have access to, whatever you need. And so the question is, what do you want to do? What do you want to do with your life? You can make a career out of anything. So what I teach my kids and what I teach the CEOs in my Abundance 360 community is let's find your passion. Let's find your massive transformative purpose in life. It can change a year from now. It can change 10 years from now, but be driven by a passion and a purpose. Not your parents' passion, not your teacher's passion, not your brother or sister's passion, your passion. Why are you on this planet? And your number one goal should be to find that. The second thing I teach my kids, I also, when I'm in the boardroom for CEOs, ask great questions. We're living in a world where you can know anything, anytime, anywhere, right? We have billions, hundreds of billions of sensors. Your AI, you can ask a question like, on Madison Avenue in New York, what's the average color of a man's, blouse or coat? And you can know the answer. It's important, the questions you ask. It's far more important. So learn how to ask great questions in this world of an abundance of information. And then the third thing, especially in the digital world we're living in, is grit, is the idea of persistence, if not giving up. And that's Jeff Bezos said, listen, our success at Amazon is a function of the number of experiments we do per year, per month, per week, and per day. And experiments are about asking great questions and not giving up and trying over and failing and over again. And it's an incredible world. So anyway, it is truly an honor and a pleasure. Josemaría, I look forward to working with you and others here. Let's do some fun things together.
Sure, Peter. On behalf of Amafore and of the thousands of people connected this morning, I would like to thank you. It was really an honor for me to listen to you and to have this Q&A. I really appreciate it. I'm sure you will change the people's lives today with your chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.